Last Thursday, the media research firm Nielsen put out its annual report on NBA viewership. The report finding that viewership across the league is down a staggering 28% from last season and almost 50% since 2012. This is a little odd because at the same time, other major American sports leagues are actually seeing a boost in their viewership numbers. The NFL is up 2% from last season, the NHL is up 8%, and even the MLB, a sport that was previously the example for a dying league, saw a 36% increase in the 18 to 34 age demographic alone. All of this has sparked up an ongoing conversation on why the NBA is the only league out of the Big Four that aren't benefiting from this newfound growth. Well, these could be a few reasons why. Starting off this list with the fact that the league just hasn't adapted to the times. If you look at other major sports leagues, they all offer a wide variety for fans to enjoy the game. Just looking at the MLB, you can stream their games on MLB TV, Peacock, Apple TV+, Amazon Prime, and they even offer a free MLB Game of the Week right on YouTube. Well, comparing that to the NBA, where you have League Pass that won't even let you watch your home team live, YouTube TV, and ESPN+, occasionally streaming the odd game. Well, as cable continues to phase out, having a real grasp on the streaming side of things is a must to get a hold of the younger generations and ensure that you have a new generation of fans watching your league. But with the NBA, it almost feels like they're actively taking every step to make sure fans have to jump through a million hoops to finally watch their favorite team. Compared to the more streamlined aspects of MLB TV, the NBA has a much wider, expansive range of regional TV networks that have the rights to these games, making it so you have to buy subscriptions to those networks if you want to watch the game, even on League Pass, making it kinda obvious that the NBA has prioritized making money from these network deals rather than making sure the fans are able to get easy and relatively cheap access to the league. And that's why people are starting to watch the games in more of an Eastern way, if you know what I mean, rather than going out and buying League Pass, something that many people would do if you didn't have to get an additional subscription to Bally Sports or another one of these networks, evident by the fact that the MLB TV and NFL's Red Zone are both alive and thriving when people could just go out and find other ways to watch the games like they do with the NBA. But instead of putting in the time to work toward finding new ways to bring the game to fans, the biggest innovations from the league have come in the laziest of cash-grabbing forms, NFTs and AI.
Show me the Pacers game as if it were a Spider-Man movie.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And sure, yes, the league is looking to expand into more streaming options with Amazon, but it should be noted that you will need another subscription aside from Amazon Prime to access those games. And that's really the overarching point here. Adam Silver and the rest of the higher level people inside the NBA need to get back to the actual product of the game. Introducing the NBA Cup and play-in tournaments are really only half measures when fans are making it clear that some of the biggest issues are actually just being able to have access to watch those games. Recently, it feels like the league is no longer concerned with trying to market the league to fans, but rather focusing on selling the league to advertisers and different sports networks. I mean, hell, we really almost lost Inside the NBA, a staple of the league since 1989 in the most recent media rights deal that basically saw Amazon being brought in to replace TNT. So even as we advance in this space, we as fans still seem to be the ones that are getting the short end of the stick or just completely sold out, like with the NBA getting into bed with sports betting. Now listen, I'm not going to be one of those anti-gambling guys. I'd be lying if I said I didn't actively have a parlay on the go while making this video, but seeing the league being so open to embrace those apps just kinda doesn't feel right. Especially when there are other avenues the league could have went down to get the same effect, like promoting fantasy basketball sites and apps. Something that doesn't always require somebody putting money on the line, but it is also a great method to convert some casual fans into more dedicated, serious fans. Now keep in mind, all of these issues that I've mentioned, and we're not even at the point of actually watching the game yet. So say you do manage to buy your 15 subscriptions. You sit down, get talked into a few boosted parlays in the pregame shows, but now you're finally ready to watch your favorite team play at 7:30. Really, that won't start till about 7:55, but don't worry, you'll get at least a solid 4.5 minutes of action before another Lopez Brothers or ludicrous State Farm commercial is being shoved down your throat.
Oh, that is ludicrous.
Oh well, Scott Foster and the boys are shooting the shit trying to figure out if player A taking a deep breath of air could be considered an unsportsmanlike conduct worthy of a technical foul. And that leads me into the next issue. Refs are slowly killing the game. It's really getting out of hand at this point. I mean, it's kind of wild when you have announcers saying things on air like that player has started to earn that call, as if fouls should be given out whether or not a player has reached a certain status or not. This inconsistency in handing out fouls has opened the refs up to more criticism, not only by us fans, but also by the players on the court, who are now constantly going at the refs, and honestly, I don't blame them. If you're giving out the same BS foul all night, I'm gonna be a little upset the one time you don't give me that same call. So although it is annoying to watch players chirp at the refs instead of getting back on defense, if there was some more consistency, then players would have less of a reason to complain. There are other things that could help the fan experience when talking about the officiating that are a lot easier to implement, like the reviewed calls and coaches' challenges. Whenever there's a review, the officials usually talk about it amongst themselves for a bit before calling up the review center and discussing it with them. Well, one little thing that you could do to help speed this process up and make the games a little quicker is make a decision in the review center and have something prepared immediately for if and when the officials call you up. There's no reason for there to be these long of delays in the game other than to justify the millions of commercial breaks. But all of these points, plain and simply, the league just doesn't feel as clean or as good as it did back in the 90s up through the mid-2010s. The focus around smaller market teams is pretty much non-existent. I mean, just think back not that long ago when there were exciting teams like the 04 Pistons, the J-Kid Nets, or the KGT Wolves. But today, that type of smaller market hype just isn't there. The obsession by the league to cling on to bigger and more historical franchises is starting to turn out a worse of an overall product. Like seriously, why are the horrid 76ers getting a chance to play on Christmas Day, but the OKC Thunder, the top team in the West for 2 years in a row, don't? Even thinking back to last year, we had a young, exciting Orlando Magic team being led by a second-year player that almost took their team to 50 wins, and they got one nationally televised game, opposed to the 10th-seeded Warriors who got 41 nationally televised games. Also being the perfect example for the league's failure to move on from the LeBron, Steph, and KD era to introduce the new class of legitimate young stars that are growing in this league that are also head of legitimately exciting teams. The NHL has figured this out, and you can see the league start to do a better job of ushering in the next era of teams and players. One of the reasons they've been able to see a rise in viewership. So as far as promoting the teams, that is one thing the NBA could learn from another sports league. But when it comes to the actual games, there are issues that can't simply be solved just by looking at other major sports leagues. For example, the regular season almost doesn't matter anymore, and that's something that needs to be addressed. Before the season even starts, you pretty much know how the season's gonna go. As of late, that's especially been true in the Eastern Conference, who struggled to find the same dominance as the West, and maybe one thing you could do is completely eliminate conferences altogether. This would theoretically make things a little bit more competitive, and in the playoffs would help to cut down on the East getting a cakewalk like the Celtics had last year. Another idea for the league that has been floated around a ton is the expansion and a shortened season. Even some of the biggest NBA critics still can't deny that the sheer amount of talent in the league is at levels we've never seen before. The problem is that talent is congested together, as well as the fact is they're sitting more and more of the season. So adding 2 more teams to the league would help spread out the talent, and shortening up the season would hopefully mean that these players are suiting up for more of the year. The final issue, or really more of a question, is are we as fans partially to blame for the league's decline in viewership? It's no secret that as the league's grown, the conversation around the NBA and its players online has become a pretty hate-fueled side of the sport, and the online aspects of the game have become such a major part of it, even now with more and more players starting up podcasts. And I think that some fans have their perception of the league tainted before even watching a game. Not that there aren't legitimate criticisms with the league, but it could be made out to be worse than it is on places like Twitter or Reddit. About 2 years ago, the T-Wolves were the butt of every joke after showing emotion for making it out of the play-ins. But that same passion is what fans should want from their league. It was a young, exciting team breaking through a speed bump early on in their journey, and that was something that was needed for them to eventually run it back to the conference conference finals last year. So although I do maintain the league can do a better job of advertising their smaller market teams, as fans, when we see that journey play out in front of us, we should appreciate the ride instead of looking for instant gratification that comes from seeing one of your childhood stars make a final push late in their career. I mean, at some point, LeBron, Steph, and KD need to get knocked out of the top 10 jersey sales, because as fans, that's something that we directly impact. So after a certain point, we as fans need to recognize that there are also things we need to do to help this league grow. And that's it for this video. If you made it to the end, like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff, and hopefully we'll see you back here next Sunday where we do an NBA Weekly recap.